frogs, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reading They Don't Care About Us, which is part of the Moonwalker AU, written by SpiraPhantom. As is going to be normal for this series, I'm using their artwork for the thumbnail. Oh, and yes, I did get permission from Spira to use their art. This is part of a larger series which is called the Moonwalker AU, which is a My Hero Academia x Kimetsu Academy crossover. Now, if you don't know what Kimetsu Academy is, so you guys know how sometimes an action shonen like Attack on Titan or something else like that, like Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia, they get like a chibi spin-off series. Personally, I believe the chibi spin-off series for My Hero Academia is cursed because chibi All Might does not look good as a chibi. Anyway, back to this. So Kimetsu Academy is Demon Slayer's high school AU, basically, where most of the characters are in this thing called, Kimetsu Academy, which is high school. Basically, it's a slice of life series that is a recommended read on my end. But you don't really need to know about it that much, other than just the characters have slightly different roles. But back to this. They don't care about us. Summary. Sometimes a family is a scam artist hero and the burned up kids he picks up. Ice Hero Doma is a man and you've heard of whether you want it or not. An enigmatic figure without a care in the world for heroics, despite his license and overwhelming strength. By all accounts, his one joy in life is driving society up the walls, and Endeavor, the number 2 hero of Japan, is one of his favorite targets for teasing. That said, is that all there is to the scandalous hero? Notes. See end of work for more notes. Everyone knows the Ice Hero Doma, whether they want to or not. Arguably the most scandalous hero in all of Japan, and one of the most famous, despite not being anywhere near the top 10 rankings. On the contrary, you're bound to find him at best in the low triple digit. But let's start at the beginning, as much as you can find one. He's an alumni of Kimetsu Academy, but that esteemed hero course only grew in prominence with the current chairman on the board, Ubuyashiki Kagaya. And you're hard pressed to find any details buried in their archives about the real identity of a student who eventually became Doma. The most interesting part only happened after he obtained his hero license. After all, oh no, I didn't intend to play a hero professionally. How silly it would be. I only got the license so I can use my quirk whenever I want. That's what he says, dressed in his signature lilac formal suit with black turtleneck. Doma has no agency or sidekicks, and he states on national TV he has no interest in being a pro hero. That said, his interview was just opposed against the image of a gargantuan villain with a blade quirk, subdued by his mighty ice quirk in seconds. The interview became a sensation. Doma's casual charm and, despite his claim, impeccable professionalism in handling a dangerous villain, his angelic face with the rainbow-colored eyes captivate people. The rumors of his cons began running amok, of Doma swindling people with fortune telling and being a scam artist of many venues. In the pre-quirk era, there used to be a gangster in the United States, one Al Capone. Everyone knew who he was, how ruthless he was, but his larger-than-life nature and extravagance kept him in the public's favor. That's exactly what happened with Doma. And just like Al Capone, no evidence of a crime could be traced back to him. Well, the man becoming an escape artist in the world of the law as well. However, a malicious man, Doma isn't. Rather, he's a mischievous one, dancing with the law just to drive the police and the Public Hero Safety Commission insane for a laugh. If a crime is to unfold right in front of him, he will stop the perpetrator with a single wave of a golden fan. If an earthquake breaks in the ground next to him, he'll build a picturesque bridge of ice for everyone to pursue for free. Doma's not evil. He just doesn't care for most things in the world, that is. Of course, a part of his charm. An ever-present guest on talk shows and the subject of discussions, even without a present in the room, Doma is an enigma that everyone's eager to learn and understand. Naturally, rumors build up, and his quirk, cryokinesis, gives the tabloids a field day once one of them connects the dots. Endeavor-san, is it true that Ice Hero Doma is a member of the Himura family that your life belongs to? I refuse to entertain such outrageous gossip. The tall and sturdy flame hero scowls, and the blue-haired reporter jumps a bit. Unfortunately for the number 2 hero, a blonde man in the signature lilac suit just happens to venture through the street where a dangerous villain has been taken down. Of course he notices the unmistakable severe man. Oh, Endeavor-kun! The scandalous charmer explains, waving at him, and the camera crew was making his way toward them. Without even turning his face to him, Endeavor closes his eyes and exhales forcefully through his nose, making his mustache made of flame burn brighter. Doma doesn't waste time intruding into the other's personal space, and side by side, one may be shocked to see that Doma isn't much shorter than the Todoroki family patriarch, and can casually lean against his shoulder, ice forming an armor around him to protect Doma from the burn of Endeavor's flaming shoulder guards. I see you're guarding the peaceful sleep of Mustafa, citizens. Such a good man, Endeavor-kun. Doma laughs cheerfully, patting the larger man on the shoulder with the other hand, icy particles flying off as they cover his hand, protecting it from his fire. Hands off while you still have 'em. Endeavor growls, side-eyeing Doma, and the rainbow-eyed man only gives another cheerful laugh in response. You wouldn't. You like me too much. Doma-san, is it true that you're a relative of Todoroki Rei? The reporter steps in, a bit more brave after seeing Doma's casual treatment of one of the most fearsome heroes in the country. The blue-haired man still wilts when Endeavor turns his glare to him. Oh, is that what they're saying now, are they? Doma's grin becomes even wider as he fully turns his head towards Endeavor. How about I call you a brother-in-law? Or maybe a cousin-in-law? Endeavor-kun? How about you go and drown in a sake bath? Number 2 hero replies flatly, earning yet another chuckle from the ice hero that irritates him even further. Endeavor deeply regrets not leaving the crime scene before the reporter got to him. In fact, he's somewhat jealous of the villain he already subdued, who's already being carted off. I guess I'll need to buy a lot more gifts for all the birthdays of my dear nephews and niece I need to make up, won't I? Doma grins, perfectly aware of how much he irritates Endeavor, and savoring it, fanning the rumor mill with each word he speaks. Toyaka-un's turning 10 in 2 months, isn't he? That gives Endeavor a startle, and he gives a surprised side glance toward the grinning man. Despite how often they accidentally cross paths, the ice hero seems to thrive off of making his life insufferable. He didn't know the easygoing Dan, and he had such in-depth knowledge of his family. For a moment, Endeavor himself wonders if Doma is actually a Himura, but who knows what thoughts lie behind that smile. Then the hero curses internally, realizing he let the moment show on camera without giving anything but a gruff grunt. Endeavor turns around and walks away from the press, irritating the irritating hero, something that he should have done in the first place. Endeavor-kun, let the kids know Uncle Doma's going to be around. Endeavor pointedly ignores the fool. Isn't it sad, Enji-kun, that paradise doesn't exist? Doma said after the 3 kids left in the house. Teenagers, really. Sans the little Shoto he saw too rarely, went to sleep with just the heroes of flame and ice awake. The place felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Enji stopped, looking over his shoulder to look at the man in the lilac suit standing in the main doorway about to leave. Doma, with a blank expression that looked eerily out of place on his generally jovial face, opened up his golden fans with a lotus design engraved on it, fanning himself. The gods and Buddhas are merely fairy tales invented by humanity for their own peace of mind, the ice hero went on in a low voice. When you die, you just become nothing, stop feeling anything. Your heart and brain stop. You decompose and return to the earth, the unavoidable fate of all living creatures. Doma's rainbow eyes seemed to gleam into the Todoroki patriarch's soul, while digging into the sins that the man carries. The reality of divine judgment is that those who live upright and good lives meet with misfortune, while the wicked act as they please, he continued, just as the slightest tinge of melancholy in the words. That's why you and I are still here, and Toya-kun isn't. Enji kept his silence and turned away from Doma. Get out. The taller and sturdier man growled through, though he made Doma tilt his head in mild curiosity. Was that a hitch in his voice he heard? As he headed out with a question if he thought maybe Todoroki Enji did have a heart. Though what good was it if it led you astray from your empty ambitions? Past didn't disappear just because a heart became full of regret. There are few things Doma cares about in the world, though in his words, he only obtained his hero license to bypass the extremely inconvenient law on quirk use. The havoc he wrought in the process has brought something close to excitement in his dull life, and a bit of apathy for the pitiful lives around him. Playing for the public is something that he has come truly to enjoy, and of course when it comes to individuals, Todoroki Enji, aka Endeavor, the number 2 hero of Japan, is one of his favorites to mess with. Right now, next with the administration of the Hero Public Safety Commission and a few other people of all ages and stations. However, it's been a few years since his barbs towards Endeavor have become as sharp as the edges he set out on his golden fans, since he's begun to intercept the hero, not to tease him, but to intentionally steal his thunder, capturing any villain he hasn't dealt with by the time of his arrival, poking at Endeavor's feelings of inadequacy compared to the number 1, if he needs the help of the scam artist hero. Such uncharacteristic aggression. Well, perhaps Doma has come to concern himself with the Todoroki kids. The act of Uncle Doma he puts on was an interesting change of pace from his usual roles. At the time, driving Todoroki Enji to the privacy of his oh-so-impenetrable mansion turned out to be just as fun as rallying Endeavor up on a random street. Doma knew he liked the man back then. Otherwise, he should have at least tried to file for a trespassing, or, well, perhaps he knew he'd just be fighting a losing fight. It was a tragedy to see little Shoto with the scar his mother left him before being admitted to a ward. But Doma persevered. His visits becoming more frequent as he found he didn't want the kids to feel the turmoil he did. And it wasn't until the household suddenly became one child shorter, and Endeavor truly forbade him entrance. Though that Doma realized how used he became to such visits, chatting with the kids, lifting the family spirits, and whenever their parents weren't there to watch them for one reason or another, slandering a good name of their father, all in good fun. That's what it is. What? You really convinced them there's an award for that? Well, there's an award that year. Toya-kun didn't lie. I just didn't mention that Gyoko-san placed first on most villain-looking hero rankings for 10 years straight, and that was an honorary award. Enji-kun was flaming at his second place, and I have the recording of that particular case they cut from the news. What a shame. Will you show it to us? Natsuo asked, trying to look cute and innocent. Well, maybe one if you get it for their next birthday. A snowflake falls onto Doma's nose, and he's back in the present. Doma shakes his head with a smile, dismissing the memories that have nothing to do with spoil his mood. He's on his way home after a long day at work. Ambiguous the term might be, his backpack carries over his shoulder just because he can, is filled to the brim with delicacies to improve anyone's mood. A lesser man would have been startled at the crashing sound in in an alleyway Doma passes. The ice hero instead stops, takes a few steps backwards, and turns to the dimly lit street. In the brilliant moonlight, it looks something possibly inviting any monster that prefers hiding in the dark. Doma smiles, thinking he has time for a detour. It's not like his quirk will allow him to turn into a snowman. Doma looks around, only mildly surprised at the hidden pockets of slums in an otherwise respectable neighborhood where his favorite apartment is located. Finally, he sees the source of the disturbance. A male figure collapsed over a trash can. How fortunate for him that it had already been emptied. A figure with messy and spiky white hair grunts, forcing himself of tall his force. Doma can hear quiet whispers, delirious even, of a voice too deep, wheezing for a man and of such signature lean. If he hadn't been smoking since his school days. No, dying, no, dying yet. I have to kill that bastard. The man's voice breaks, and he coughs and shivers from the growing cold. Doma briefly thinks of the pitiful manifestation of humanity that the man represents, but then the person on the ground seems to notice his company and lift his head. It seems a night of remembrance, as the surprisingly young man's image is overlapping in Doma's mind with a pair of desperate siblings escaping from disastrous flames in another set of slums that Doma extinguished with a wave of a fan, slamming it down on across. The arsonist responsible in shock as the two kids clung to his feet, sobbing in fear and sporting vicious burns. He's back in the present again, and the young man is at his feet. An even more pitiful sight, pale with patches of wrinkled light purple skin covering his lower face and neck, and his arms surrounding his eyes. There's no doubt out there that even more patches of burnt skin under the ratty coat and shirt. You, the young man whispers, his brilliant turquoise eyes wielding, but not only half focusing on Doma's figure. There's something hauntingly familiar about that gaze. What's up? Doma asks softly with a wide smile, stretching his free hand towards the man on the ground. I'm a nice guy. I can't leave you alone. Come on, kid. What we call life is precious. You have to value it. You're right. It's not your time to die yet. Weakly, the teen on the ground reaches for Doma's hand. His grip is surprisingly strong for someone who looks like he's been through hell and is waiting on a cue at death's door. In Doma's mind, it is a good sign, and this shows that he's willing to live. Doma has the support of a younger man with his free hand as he struggles to stay on his feet, and ultimately has to actually wear his food backpack on his back to use both hands. If anyone was to see us, they'd think that I, Doma, have fallen as low as to get a kid drunk. Doma laughs slightly, but casually helps the others stay upright as they walk through the snowing streets. Not a kid, the teen grunts, barely keeping consciousness. Well, I have to call you something, though I suppose I could call you fellow human. That wouldn't be wrong. The ice hero grins, giving a glance to his scarred companion. He hesitates. Dobby. I'm Dobby. Just like Doma's own name, it's not the name the young man was given at birth. At least the hero can say it once, though cremation describes the person rather eloquently. If so, who's Doma to contradict him? He wouldn't like it to be a hypocrite, and sometimes one's past is better left behind. Well, meet then, Dobby. Say hi. I have a whole feast on my back. Do you have any preference for when we finally get into a place of warm and safety? Nah, sleep. Fair enough. Doma continues talking for the two of them about everything in the world as they walk, and rather fortunately, despite his grumpy disposition, Dobby doesn't seem to mind it. Even more fortunately, they get to Doma's apartment building before the snowstorm really picks up. The ice hero isn't too worried about himself, as his cryokinesis quirk grants him sufficient protection from the cold. But it would have been rather sad if his SQE he turns into a popsicle. Though it didn't evade Doma's notice, is that even with exposed tender scars, Dobby feels almost comfortable in the cold as Doma himself. How many people have such resistance to low temperatures? Inside, they find a notice that the elevator isn't working. Which floor? Dobby asks immediately. 10th. Doma replies with a wide grin, and the other groans. Maybe death is a choice. The two start their ascent. By the 7th floor, Doma resolves to picking up the teenager in a bridal carry because supporting him while climbing the stairs is extremely inconvenient. There are a few peculiar sparks of blue fire that almost singe him when he does, produced more out of Dobby's shock than rather a serious assault. But of course, Doma has enough experience teasing Endeavor that he built his ice armor on instinct. You know your fires are rather impressive, young man, Doma compliments offhandedly, and these sparks manage to actually melt a part of his armor. Dobby mutters something about his nose, something under his nose, pressing against Doma's lilac jacket. Not even Endeavor can manage such a feat by accident, and he's never deemed it worth trying. Doma realizes one issue with the bridal carry once he reaches the door. He's out of arms to open the door. Oh dear, the man mutters to himself before popping his nose against the doorbell. That triggers some creepy caroling on the other side. There's footsteps on the other side, and Dobby seems surprised by the very fact. It makes sense that no one really associates it with Doma to the point where you may think, yeah, I can see him living with that, and without trying to kill him. And no one really thinks or cares about Doma as a human being who can peacefully coexist with someone in the same room, rather as an untouchable celebrity. He's used to it. A girl, no older than 9, opens the door, and Doma's newest rescuee startles at the sight of her long, disheveled white hair and bright blue eyes. Ume-chan, how have you and your brother been doing without me? Doma grins, and he would rather wave his hand, and he would have waved his hand if he had free hands for it. The girl, Ume, rolls her eyes and steps aside, letting the older man in before locking the door behind them. Doma's apartment is cozy and spacious, though not as extravagant as people think from watching the man. He doesn't keep trinkets and other action figures haphazardly. He left dresses and ribbons all belong to other people living in an apartment. Doma's 2 young wards. Hey, brother! Ume shouts as the 3 get into the apartment proper. Here's a shock! Doma's no longer the ugliest guy in the house! What are you on about, Ume-chan, eh? A rough but still childlike voice comes from around the corner, where a boy, 11 years of age, shows up lazily. A rude person would call him ugly. The boy's got a sickly, thin frame, which is why Doma's backpack is full of nutritious foods, among other stuff. His body sports ink-like black spots all around, arranged in a line on his face, along with unruly black hair. The transitions into lime green closer to the tips. It gives the boy a swamp-like appearance. Those bright blue eyes make him unquestionably Ume's older sibling. His thin eyes are slanted downwards at the side, drastically, with him glaring at Doma, and Dobby is scowling with his sharp teeth. He looks perpetually haggard. Oi, old man, don't tell me it's going to be a habit with you. Oh, no. Oh, not at all, Gyutaro-kun. Doma's laugh, setting the somewhat confused Dobby on the couch in the living room, where Ume starts poking the teenager's discolored arms with curiosity. With Dobby here, I just felt Providence intervened to make our paths cross. Gyutaro narrows his eyes in even more suspicion. The boy believes in no providence, and burn marks hidden by his long sweater taken to protect his sister tell a story behind it. More than that, Gyutaro knows his caretaker shares his lack of belief. If anything good ever happened, it was just dumb luck. But weak-willed, desperate people would like to believe in a higher force. Whatever, Gyutaro groans before he leaps towards the couch and all but lifts Ume above him to put distance between her and Dobby, who's groaning at her poking. Ume-chan, don't touch that guy. Hey, you don't know where he's been. He might have, rabies? I'd be dead already if I did. Dobby huffs before yawning, wincing as he does so. the motion obviously painful for him. Talk about contagious yawns. The kids, however, don't seem to notice them, catching the bug and yawning right after. Yeah, I'm off, weirdos. Tommy turns his back to them and seems to go to sleep immediately, or at least fake it. Oma can't help but smile at the mannerism as he carries his backpack to the kitchen and starts unpacking and settling all the acquisitions. Gyuto's hands are full with his little sister, who's grumpy from being stopped from her examination, follows Doma. Ume immediately forgets her worry at the sight of sweets and that the man lays out and allows her to have straight away. The brother stares at their caretaker quietly until the man's rainbow eyes turn towards him. A few minutes later, once all the food is placed where it should be, vegetables in the fridge, candies in the cabinet above, so on. Are you replacing us? Yutaro says quietly, and Ume goes quiet as well, holding off consuming the rest of the treats. Doma should have expected something like this, but it still takes him off guard. The man in a lilac suit approaches the boy and kneels next to him. He lays a hand on his shoulder, perpetual smile softening into something sincere, as sincere as he can manage. Gyutaro-kun, I can never replace you. Silly, all humans are unique. Oma smiles and gives a glance towards Ume as well, beckoning her to come closer with his free hand, hugging the two kids. I've decided to dedicate myself to you. Because I like you, and I've been told to shake me off. I like Dobby too, but I think it will be a while now before anyone else turns up as unique and interesting as you three. Ume preens under the attention, grinning in return, while Gyutaro mumbles something affirmative. Doma then guides the children to their rooms. It's rather late, and children must maintain a proper sleep schedule. Granted, before he oversees Ume and Gyutaro's self to help him with his healing burns, as the boy doesn't trust anyone but her to touch him still. When the man closes the door behind him, he knows that Ume will sleep, and she should. As she should, Gyutaro will sit on the floor, glaring at the door, like his sister's dutiful bodyguard. He'll have to do something about it sooner or later. Still awake? Doma smiles while Dobby, who's now curled up on the couch into something fetus-like, doesn't reply in words. He turns around. He does grunt. The ice hero sits next to the teenager, almost 17 years of age. As Doma suspects, he puts his hand on the white hair, combing through his fingers. A stranger's tender act like that would put one on alert. It's quite the opposite with Dobby. His whole body relaxes, and he breathes easier. Between this and that Doma, the ever-perceptive man, has the slightest idea of Dobby's true identity, despite it being such an improbable miracle. But as he thought, before Dobby is Dobby, something in the past felt is best sometimes. Between this and that, Doma, the ever-perceptive man, has the slightest idea of Dobby's true identity, despite it being such an improbable miracle. But, well, it is as he thought. Before Dobby is Dobby, and sometimes the past is best left in the past. He'll be more than happy to build a future from the blocks that dumb luck gave him. You can stay here for longer than just one night before you think of dealing with the sunrise. Doma hums softly. Shabana Dabi. How does that sound? The teenager stays silent, and the man pats his head before standing up, just like any human being. Doma needs his beauty sleep, just like everyone else. Sleep on it, Dabi-kun. We're in no hurry. Doma turns the lights off in the living room and departs for his own room, not in any way concerned about his young guest's decision. Granted, teenagers are a notoriously unpredictable lot, and something tells him that Dobby will choose to stay. Providence, perhaps? He's been missing his lovely nephew. Notes. I wrote a second piece of My Hero Academia X Academy crossover, but I did not intend to, but here it is. The title is, of course, an MJ reference. Okay, everyone, so that was They Don't Care About Us, which is part 2 of the Moonwalker AU. I don't really have anything else to say other than I'll be seeing you guys next time. And oh, almost forgot. Please go to Sarah. Some of you might be used to this spiel by now, but to those that are just joining in, please go to SpiraPhantom and to original work to please leave comments and kudos, because I know it might seem a bit repetitive when I say that every work is a good work, but genuinely they are. I'd say some of these works are just better than some books and other novels I've read. Seriously, some of these AO3 authors should actually try to publish their work. Naturally, with changing a few names as to not get copyright strikes.